Alright, I am officially going live for the first time beyond experimentation. I'm not exactly sure what people do when they go live other than I swipe past and go to the next thing. I am back on the clock. I'm back expediting. I had a load this morning I just picked up in Channelview, Texas, and it's going to Oregon, Ohio, which is across the street from Toledo, so let's just call it Toledo. Picked up a small pallet, a small box. It's basically an oversized suitcase. And I threw it in the van, and I left the doors open. I did not strap the load down. I went in to use the restroom, came back, and they were pulling it back off the van. So I said, oh, okay. That was quick. Apparently they gave me the wrong one, so that worked out really good, because they don't have my phone number. Whoops. So I am now getting back on the road. I'm going to claw my way back through Houston traffic as per the GPS, and then head up what's called Highway 69, which goes to the northeast of Houston, and it goes up towards Memphis and whatnot. A route I've been on a million times. Not a great paying load, but getting out of here, getting out of the Houston area with a load is a challenge. This is not where the cargo is. For all you people who expedite, you know this. So I am happy having a load and getting up there. It pays $1,000. And I will be in Grand Central when I drop off. It is Friday morning. This package is technically not due until Monday, but it's going to a plant, and plants have a tendency to be open 24 hours a day. So I'm going to go straight there. I'm going to stop overnight, but tomorrow I will get in there and see if I can drop it off. And more times than not, at a plant, not at a business, you can unload. I have this little box strapped down. I've got E-tracks in the back, and when a pallet is this small, you can't really put 2 straps on it because it's not big enough. And it's light enough. It's like 250 pounds. I slid it around a little bit and got it at a 45-degree angle. Strap from one side of the E-track to the other diagonally, so it's not going anywhere. And I also enjoy the fact that it's small because I can move around back in here when I stop for the night. It's after 9:15 local. I'm hoping traffic has thinned out a little. May not have, but so far so good. Now, when people are driving along, they like to watch the video of traffic, which of course everybody's seen this. Hoping to get out of this soon enough. But what I like to talk about, just randomness that goes through my head, is the TV series MASH. If anybody, I'm in my mid-50s, anybody my age and older knows the significance of that show, and my other people don't. But the show came out in 1972, and it was based on a movie that came out in 1970 that I personally wasn't really impressed with. And the movie was based on a book that was written in the 60s, and it was about 3 Army surgeons and the Korean War. And the series was basically a dig on Vietnam. It said Korea, and it was about Korea, and it was based in Korea, but it was really an anti-Vietnam dig. And by 1972, the population in general was pretty much fed up with Vietnam. It was starting to wind down. And again, 1972 to 1983 was the series run. And one of the many reasons the show was successful was during that time frame, early mid-70s, there was extreme anti-government, anti-authoritarian sentiment in the country, and it tapped into that. Henceforth, later when the show went off the air, you're there, and I'm sorry, there's stuff popping up on my screen. There was when Reagan got elected in 1980, the country's mindset was starting to change, so the show was kind of fighting against the changing topography of society, and that's one of the reasons it went off. And they were starting to push harder and harder the anti-government thing, which wasn't really working at that point. but the show kicked out some experimental ideas. It was a drama and a comedy mixed together, and nobody had really done that before. And you have to remember, this is back during the time when we had 3.5 channels. There's a guy walking down the side of the road with a bicycle right there. There was we had like 3.5 channels, on TV back then. It wasn't like it is today, where it was just unlimited. So basically, everybody and your brother watched that show. And when it went off the air, it still stayed in syndication. It's still in syndication to this day. But it was on the air. You could find it all over the place. And I grew up in Colorado. And the night syndication of the show came on after the news. This is back when the news was late. And it was on from 10:35 to 11:05 at night. And I remember calling a business, and some old guy's voicemail answered and said, "Thank you for calling." I don't know what the business was. And the guy said, "We're open from 8 o'clock in the morning until MASH is over." Because everybody knew that what time that was. You could take calls until then. I got a kick out of that. But the show mixed comedy and controversy and drama together in a weird format, and everybody was like, you can't do that. Well, they did it and got away with it. And one example of that is the swing of emotions. Is there was the earlier first few seasons, there was Henry Blake, who was the unit commander. He was a light colonel, kind of a doofus, and he got off the show. He actually got off the show because he thought he was super popular, and it wasn't him. It was his character was popular. He as an actor wasn't that high in demand, and he got off and got on his own shows, and it fizzled. His career kind of went away, but he got off the show after a few seasons, got replaced with Colonel Potter, and the storyline was he got discharged and went home. Well, they show him walking around in street clothes, all dramatically, hugging everybody, and he leaves in happiness. And then the last scene of that episode, that he left, got on a plane and flew off, and Alan Alda said, "I have an idea." Didn't warn any of the cast members, other than the guy that played Radar, Gary Burghoff. They're in surgery doing their thing. They hand him the script. He walks in the room. He's not wearing a mask, and everybody says, "Hey, put your mask on." And he reads a telegraph that the plane that he was riding on got shot down over the Sea of Japan, and there were no survivors. So that was the swing of emotions of a character you were used to seeing, and the happiness of them going home and everything, and they would swing back and forth like that. It was crazy. And my very favorite character on the show was Jamie Farr, who played Maxwell Klinger, and he was one of the actors. He was a nobody at the time, but he got hired to be in one episode, just passing through, just a random person. And they liked his acting so well, they said, "Well, how can we keep this guy on?" And he ended up staying for the rest of the series until the series went off the air. And he was the one that dressed up like a woman, trying to get out of the army. And they tried to make his character effeminate, and he said no. Make him a man's man. Have him smoke cigars and dress like a woman. And he was exceptionally hairy, which made him look even funnier in dresses and stuff. And his character was wonderful, and as time went on, he kind of dropped the outfits and just dressed normal for the era. And the thing about that era is the 1950s, the hairstyles of the 1950s for men, especially military, was like a crew cut, and women had styles of the 50s. But on the show, every single character on the show had a 1970s haircut, which I thought was kind of funny. Totally non-military, but even outside of that, anybody passing through had 1970s hair. And if you were to look at the people in the background, you watch the main players on a TV show, but look at the background players and you'll recognize a tremendous number of actors who were up and coming back then. For instance, one of the wounded soldiers in the OR was Patrick Swayze. And then there was Bruno Kirby, who was the guy in City Slickers. He was in there. There were, at the time, a lot of football players who had retired from football would become actors because they were known. And one was, his name's Carras. He played Mongo on Blazing Saddles. Well, he was a character that passed through there. And there were Leslie Nielsen, Naked Gun series. him. He was a lieutenant colonel. He passed through the OR as a high-ranking guy. He was dead serious. His character wasn't kind of a comedy thing. But a lot of people in the background, if you look, you'll recognize. So it was a launching pad. But the show had an incredibly strong audience, and when they announced it was going off the air, they set up where they promoted it and said this is the last episode. It was 2 hours long, and it was then and may still hold the record as the largest viewing audience ever for TV. And then I think some sport games, some sporting events like Super Bowls, I think became more popular as time went on, more viewers. But I think for just a drama TV show, I think it may still hold the record as the most viewed show ever in American history. And then here, a year or so ago, the wife and I went on a trip to California because for people our age and older, the film location's kind of a mecca, a place to go visit, even though it's been off the air 40 plus years. And we traveled out there, and they took the set down. It was shot at the time it was private property, but now it's Malibu State Park, kind of north of Los Angeles. And everybody and their brother knew where the film site was, so everybody wants to go out there and see it while it was in production. So they literally had to have security on site, but they had security out in the hills around it to keep people from having their heads poking up while they're trying to film, which I thought that was kind of funny. And they took the set completely apart. They took it down when they ended it, and the question is why? Why didn't you just leave it? Well, people would have torn into it, vandalized it, and taken pieces. And also, there was a lot of movie magic involved. The buildings were not complete. Most of the buildings were facades. And based on the angle of the camera work, a lot of the buildings were much, much smaller than they appeared. It's just they filmed it a certain way to make it look big. And then eventually they've had a couple fires go through there, which wiped replace what little is remained. So there's the remains of a Jeep smashed up and some other vehicle, and there's one more or less intact ambulance there that you can get into. There's no engine in it, it's just sitting there. But then they have the signpost, the sign with all the distances to home. That's there. That's actually chained up. My wife and I got a picture taken next to that. I thought that was kind of everybody lines up to get their picture taken next to it. And they have some signs, some picture signs with set in certain areas that can tell you where everything was and where it was located. But it was kind of a fun trip just to go see it, because as time goes on, people who remember the show will go away like we will, and then it'll be forgotten. But for now, it was a fun experience. But that's what I was thinking about this morning, just random thoughts that go through your head. And right now, I am on the 610 loop in Houston, on the east side, circling around, getting ready to branch off on the 69 north towards Cleveland. Kind of a cross-country jaunt that gets me up to Texarkana, which is where I hit Interstate 30 and go up towards Memphis from here, Little Rock and then Memphis. Well, like I said, this van right now, which is surprising, I'm getting 23.7 miles per gallon, and I am not complaining about that. All right, well, I'm going to stop live stream for now. Again, this is my first experiment. I've never done this before. I'm not even sure what it's supposed to do. But hey, it's something to do, and I'm stuck in this van. All righty, take care.